The echo of Lucas Marin's footsteps filled the nearly empty underground garage as he made his way toward his car. It was a little after 6:30 p.m., and the lower level beneath the core building was unnervingly silent. Usually, the buzz of late-night workers or the occasional security guard brought some life to the place. Tonight, though, it felt hollow, too still. The air carried a tension that made the hairs on Lucas's neck stand up. He should have been thrilled. Just minutes ago, he'd signed off on a massive deal, $28 million in government contracts, all linked to cutting-edge encrypted defense systems. It was the kind of victory most people only dream of, and yet here he was unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong. Running a hand through his neatly styled hair, Lucas approached his car. A striking neon green Rivera GT that gleamed even under the dim garage lighting. Then he stopped. His eyes narrowed. A small boy was crouched beside the front wheel. Lucas froze in place. The boy couldn't have been older than 8. He had dark skin, a faded yellow t-shirt and rolled-up jeans. His bare feet were dusty, his knees scraped, and yet his eyes were alert, locked intently on the car. He looked like he didn't belong there, but he also didn't seem scared. Lucas stepped forward cautiously. "Hey kid," he called, his voice low and firm. "What are you doing near my car?" The boy didn't react right away. He just slowly turned his head, calm and steady. "Don't start it," the boy said softly. Lucas blinked. "What?" The boy didn't look away. Instead, he lifted a finger and pointed beneath the car's wheel well. "There's something under there. It's blinking." A chill crept down Lucas's spine. Without another word, he crouched beside the boy to get a better look. And then he saw it. Tucked up against the brake line, mostly hidden by the curve of the wheel, was a tiny black device. About the size of a matchbox. Sleek, clean, and blinking, one faint red light, pulsing every 4 seconds. It didn't take an expert to know what it was. Lucas had seen similar devices during defense briefings. Military-grade trackers. Silent. Untraceable. Professional. Whoever had placed it knew exactly what they were doing. Lucas's stomach flipped. He jumped to his feet, heart pounding. "Who are you?" he asked the boy, his voice tight. The boy stood slowly, brushing dust from his pants. "Name's Kamani," he said. "I sleep down here." Lucas's pulse surged. "You saw someone put that there?" Kamani nodded, eyes still calm. "Black car. Tinted windows. 3 men. They pulled in fast, went under your car, and left just as quick. I watched. Why didn't you tell security?" "No one listens to me," Kamani replied simply. Lucas took a shaky step back, his senses now screaming at him. He felt exposed, vulnerable. Something about the situation didn't sit right. And then from the far corner of the garage, he heard the sound. Boots. 3 men emerged from the shadows. Black boots, black jackets. No masks, but they carried wooden bats, tapping them lightly against the concrete as they moved forward. Unhurried, deliberate. Lucas swore under his breath. "Get behind me," he said quickly. But Kamani didn't move. "They're not after you," he said quietly. "They want the car." "What's inside it?" Lucas's eyes widened. The briefcase. He'd left it on the back seat, loaded with encrypted hard drives containing confidential data from the deal. Top secret intel. The 3 men were close enough now for Lucas to see their faces. None of them spoke, but the one in the center gave a smirk and began tapping the bat slowly into the palm of his hand. It wasn't just about intimidation. They knew exactly what they were doing, just like the tracker's placement. It was all part of the same plan. Lucas stood frozen, running scenarios in his head. He had no weapon, no backup, and Kamani, just a child, was the only other person in the garage. And yet, that kid had seen everything. Noticed the tracker. Warned him. Lucas clenched his fists. Whoever these men were, they hadn't expected him to be warned. That gave him a slim advantage, if he could act fast enough. The tension in the air thickened as the men closed in. Lucas knew one thing for certain. This night wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Lucas reached instinctively for his phone, his fingers brushing the inside pocket of his blazer, but Kamani quickly shook his head, eyes sharp. "Don't," he whispered. "They'll be on you before you even unlock it." Lucas paused, heart hammering in his chest. "Then what do I do?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Kamani stepped a little closer and lowered his voice to a near whisper, urgent but calm. Don't run, he said. They're waiting for that. Fear gives them control. That's what they want. Give them fear, and they'll own the moment. But if you stand tall, if you don't give it to them, you keep the power. Lucas stared at him, trying to process the strange wisdom in this street-hardened child's voice. Before he could respond, Kamani added, Keep your body between them and the car. Let me move. Wait, what? Lucas began, confused, but Kamani was already gone, slipping away like smoke between the concrete support pillars. He moved silently, melting into the shadows of the garage, his small form barely noticeable in the dim light. Lucas didn't understand what Kamani was planning, but deep down he knew one thing. If he tried to run, they'd chase. If he fought, he'd be outmatched. But if he stalled, if he gave Kamani time, maybe, just maybe, the kid could do something to shift the balance. The first man stepped forward, his voice smooth and falsely friendly. Didn't mean to scare you, man. Got turned around. Big garage, huh? Lucas said nothing. His silence wasn't out of fear, it was strategy. He stared them down. The second man moved to the side, trying to flank him. That your ride? He asked casually, nodding toward the Rivera GT. Nice wheels. Bet it purrs. The third man stayed quiet. He was the biggest, bulkier than the others, and he tightened his grip on the wooden bat like he'd done this before. There was no need for him to speak. His intention was clear in his eyes. Lucas remained still, his stance firm, positioning himself directly between them and the car. Every nerve in his body screamed to move, to fight or flee, but he forced himself to hold his ground. His eyes flicked between the men, watching for the first sign of a move. And then everything changed. The overhead lights in the garage suddenly flickered. All of them went out, plunging the structure into near darkness, except for one. A single bulb, directly above Lucas's car, remained on, casting a dramatic cone of light over him like a spotlight on a stage. A soft electronic chirp echoed through the garage. Somewhere in the shadows, a security override had been triggered. Kamani had found the fuse panel. That was the moment Lucas needed. The distraction bought him precious seconds. Without thinking, he dropped to one knee in front of the tire, reached beneath the wheel well, and yanked the small black tracker free with a firm twist. The red light blinked once more before Lucas hurled it across the garage floor with all his strength. It skidded along the concrete, bouncing once, then disappearing into the darkness. The reaction was instant. The three thugs lunged forward, seeing the device fly and realizing their plan was unraveling. But before they could reach Lucas, a piercing alarm shrieked through the garage, a high-pitched, motion-triggered security siren. Lights above began to flash red, spinning in warning. Kamani, now crouched near the ramp leading out of the garage, had slammed his hand on the emergency call button. Chaos exploded. The men, caught off guard by the sudden noise and lights, scattered. Their formation broke. The confident calm they had carried vanished in an instant. They didn't say a word. They just ran, boots pounding across the concrete floor, vanishing into the shadows they had emerged from. Lucas staggered backward, pressing himself against the car. His chest rose and fell rapidly, lungs gasping for air. His hands were trembling. His knees felt weak beneath him. And then Kamani was back, emerging from the gloom like a ghost. You good? The boy asked, voice quiet but steady. Lucas dropped to one knee in front of him, looking Kamani in the eye. You just saved my life, he said, the weight of it hitting him all at once. Kamani shook his head. No, he said simply. I saved your car. You saved everything else. Lucas stared at the boy, struck silent by the calm truth in his words. This child, ignored by the world, overlooked and forgotten, had just stepped up when it mattered most. Lucas rose slowly, placing a hand on Kamani's shoulder with quiet gratitude. I need to know everything, he said. Faces, cars, plates, names. Whatever you remember, I want it all. Kamani nodded without hesitation. Lucas let a faint smile tug at the corner of his mouth. Good, he said. Because we're not running from this. He looked down at the crushed tracker still clutched in his hand. Silent now, broken, but proof that something bigger had just begun. We're going to show them what happens when you follow the wrong man. Lucas Marin sat silently in the back of a matte black armored SUV the next morning, eyes fixed on the damaged tracker resting in his gloved palm. The device still blinked weakly, its red light flickering like a dying ember, barely alive, but still pulsing, like the final heartbeat of a fire someone else had lit. Across from him sat Kamani, freshly cleaned up. His hair was combed, his small frame swallowed by a navy blue hoodie 2 sizes too big. He held a protein bar in one hand, the wrapper half peeled, and stared out the window with sharp, alert eyes, watching the streets like a soldier on patrol. Lucas hadn't slept. He'd spent the entire night reanalyzing every detail. The ambush, the timing, the placement of the tracker. It was all too precise. Whoever was behind it didn't just guess his schedule. They knew it. Down to the minute. Down to the parking spot. There was no way around it. Someone on the inside had sold him out. Verno Systems, Lucas's company, had just secured one of the biggest defense encryption contracts from a federal agency, top-tier technology for protecting classified data infrastructure. A single breach could have been disastrous. The tracker on his Rivera GT wasn't for theft, it was surveillance. They wanted to follow his movements, hear his conversations, track his contacts. The briefcase he'd left in the back seat held drives containing data that hadn't even touched cloud storage yet. Had it been taken, it would have been catastrophic. But it wasn't, because one observant kid in a torn yellow shirt noticed a blinking light and spoke up. Now, in the private security wing of Verno HQ, Lucas stood beside Veronica Wade, his head of operations. She was reviewing garage surveillance footage, frame by frame, her brows drawn tight with focus. "There," she said, stopping the video and pointing. 3 men stepped out of a dark SUV. Their faces were mostly hidden by hats, but as one bent to the ground, he pulled his mask down to spit. "Zoom in," Lucas ordered. The image sharpened, and the man's face filled the screen. "That's him," Kamani said from across the room. His voice was steady. "That's the guy I saw crawl under your car." Veronica leaned closer. Her expression darkened. "That's Darnell Pierce. He used to work in logistics. We let him go last quarter." Lucas didn't flinch. "Do we have any record of his exit badge being deactivated?" Veronica tapped through files. "No. It looks like his access was never fully revoked." Lucas stood slowly, a storm in his eyes. Then he was still in the courier chain. He knew our drive handling schedules. He knew I'd be alone. He looked at the broken tracker in his hand again, and then back to Veronica. "Contact the agency. Let them know there was an attempted compromise on the encryption cores. Give them everything, footage, name the tracker." Veronica nodded. Then her tone softened. "And what about the boy?" Lucas turned to look at Kamani, who was curled up on the office couch, arms crossed tight over his chest, as if trying to make himself disappear again. That afternoon, Lucas and Kamani returned to the underground garage, but this time they weren't alone. A full detail of armed security swept the area, every corner watched. Kamani led Lucas straight to the wall he'd hidden behind during the ambush. Lucas knelt beside him. "You know this place better than anyone." Kamani gave a small shrug. "It's just quiet. I sleep where the cameras can't see." Lucas's chest tightened. "How long have you been on your own?" Kamani hesitated, then answered quietly. "Since my mom passed last winter." Lucas looked around, at the grease-stained floor, the cracked walls, the cold concrete that had been this child's home for months. The silence hung heavy. It made him feel sick. 2 weeks later, the headlines broke. Attempted breach on defense tech firm foiled by homeless boy's sharp eye. CEO credits street-smart child with saving national encryption data. But none of those headlines told the real story. The media praised Lucas Marin as the brilliant tech executive who averted a national crisis. They called Kamani a guardian angel, and a hero in rags. Yet behind the cameras, Lucas was doing something no one expected. He didn't put Kamani in a program. He didn't hand him off to a shelter for a PR photo op. He brought him home. No spotlight. No press. Not for charity. Not for applause. Because he couldn't shake what Kamani had told him that night in the garage. "Don't run. They know you're scared. Show them you're not alone." Lucas knew he owed that boy more than thanks. Kamani had spotted what no one else did. He didn't just save a man or a briefcase. He saved something much bigger. And Lucas wasn't going to forget that. Not ever. And that single sentence, "Don't run. They know you're scared. Show them you're not alone," did more than defuse a dangerous moment. It reshaped a mindset. It didn't just save Lucas Marin's life or his company. It saved the part of him that had forgotten what truly mattered. 1 month later, everything had changed. Kamani was no longer sleeping behind concrete pillars or hiding from cameras in cold garages. He was enrolled in a private school now, his first real classroom in years. Tutors worked with him every day, helping him catch up, not because he lacked intelligence, but because no one had ever given him a fair shot. His meals were regular. His clothes were warm. His nights were quiet. Most of all, he was safe. And Lucas? He was there. Every evening, no matter how demanding his day had been, Lucas made time. He sat with Kamani, asked about his day, listened to his stories, and helped him with homework when needed. Not because it was expected. Not because it made for good headlines. Because he wanted to. Because somehow this sharp-eyed, streetwise boy had become family. The lime green Rivera GT still sat in the same spot in the garage. Polished. Powerful. The engine still purred like it had the night of the ambush. But something had changed. Lucas no longer looked at that car with pride or desire. He didn't see status or power when he passed it. He saw a turning point. A wake-up call. A brush with loss so close that it redefined the way he viewed the world. That car used to be his symbol of success. A machine that roared wealth and prestige. Now it was something else entirely. A quiet reminder of how close he had come to losing everything that actually mattered. Not the hard drives. Not the contract. But something deeper. That night in the garage, a child who had nothing to his name, no home, no safety, no support, had stepped forward. Not for reward. Not for recognition. Just because it was the right thing to do. Kamani had seen a danger no one else saw and acted. With sharp instincts, courage, and a voice that broke through the silence, he gave Lucas something that couldn't be bought. A second chance. Lucas often found himself thinking back to that moment. Not just the blinking red light or the ambush, but Kamani's presence, steady, calm, and brave beyond his years. That kind of strength couldn't be taught. It had been forged through hardship, sharpened by solitude, and tested in fire. And while the world moved on, and reporters forgot the headlines they once ran, Lucas never forgot. He didn't parade Kamani's story around for press attention. He didn't frame it for public applause. Because what had happened that night wasn't a tale for news. It was personal. It was real. It was life-changing. Lucas knew that, in some strange way, he'd been just as invisible as Kamani had been. Surrounded by power, people, and profit, but blind to what mattered. And it had taken a boy hiding in the shadows to make him see clearly. Now every decision Lucas made, every policy he rewrote at Verno Systems, every hire, every security protocol, was touched by that night. Internal reviews were stricter. Employee clearance was tighter. Surveillance was realigned. But more than that, his vision of leadership had shifted. He was no longer just the man at the top. He was a protector. Of ideas, of people, of futures. Kamani's presence reminded him daily of the power of noticing, of stepping up, of staying grounded. And as for Kamani, he thrived. School wasn't easy. Structure took adjustment. Trust had to be earned. But Lucas watched him grow, not just academically, but emotionally. He laughed more, asked questions, found joy in small things, a pencil with his name on it, his own shelf of books, the simple rhythm of routine. He was no longer surviving. He was living. Lucas kept the crushed tracker in a drawer in his office. Not for evidence. For remembrance. A tiny black box with a broken light, once meant to follow him in secret, now served as a symbol of something far greater. A new beginning, born not from strategy or wealth, but from the courage of a child who chose to speak up. And so, the story didn't end with the headlines or the contract being saved. It didn't end with handshakes or security sweeps. It began with a question asked quietly in the dark. "What are you doing near my car?" And it changed everything that followed. If you connected with this story, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more emotional, gripping, and thought-provoking tales. Tell us in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing your stories too. Until next time. Stay kind, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the smallest voice can save the loudest world.